So let's see here. Last class, I do want to mention this again. If you're on the Jupyter Hub and you're using the terminal, there's a bug in the terminal where you'll type your characters in. You don't see anything until you hit enter. It's a known bug, and they're working on it. There's a couple ways around it. Just use SSH. You can use the Google Chrome plugin, and this will log in just like a straight old thing. Okay, so you can log in, and I'm not going to log in right now, but this is a Google Chrome plugin, and I think it's called
Show.
Yeah, there's a make sure it's written by Google. There's more than one secure shell plugin. Make sure the one you get, it's actually from Google. Okay. Because some of the other ones are actually rogue and they are rather nefarious. Okay. All right. So I have a mount point that I'm ready to make, but I need to do a few things. So first of all, use your command here, and I'll use it on this one since it's a little easier to see. df minus a. df minus a shows you all the mount points.
What was the password for root?
Root doesn't have a password, but if you log in with Jeremy Tux and Jeremy 231, that is. But on your VM, if you set it up correctly, it should be VMware 12. Which is why I always use the same password for virtual machines. It was a long week, wasn't it? Okay. The -A shows you all the mount points. And some of these are memory spaces. They're not true drive things, or it's a chunk of memory, or it's loop back. Okay. TIMPFS is a good one.
Yeah.
So when I look at this and I do df, just enter, I get a lot of stuff in there. But I only want to look at the physical drives. Okay. Whoops, I need to be in my virtual machine, not the actual machine. Let me try that again. So I need to. All right, I remember now. What was the IP? There we go. Bang 89. Whoops. There we go. All right, that's a little better. I am now on my virtual machine. Okay. I got a better screen. Very, very briefly, I will do a little bit with the networking. You have an IP address of 192, 198, 122 something. Everybody has that when you're on KVM. But your virtual machine cannot talk to that virtual machine because these are private to this KVM setup. Now, can we change that? Yes. That's a discussion for another day. It's called bridge networking or bonded networking, where you can actually create two IPs off the same network card. Except on campus, they don't let you do that. It will block the port. But at home, you can do that. You can have 5 virtual machines with 5 separate IP addresses, and your router, it looks like there's 5 different IPs on your router. Okay. So just very quickly, that's what I did. I fired up the virtual machine. I logged into Jeremy or this box here, and now I'm in the virtual machine with a slightly better screen here. So now if I do my DF, there are my drives. You can see I have root and home. But didn't we create some stuff last week? Where is it? Well, let's look at PVs. Oh, yeah. The logical volume manager commands will only work as root. And since I don't want to type the password 900 times, I am going to do sudo minus and run around the system as root. So now when I do PVs, there's my physical volumes. They kind of show you the size. And then I can do VGs. These are the volume groups. And then we have LVs, which are created, but we haven't done anything with yet. So how do I take, let's see here, add one LV, DB12 VG new, and mount it to my file system so I can use it? This is where we get to refresh your memory on FS tab. Before we do that, type in mtab, mtabs. All right, what do they call it? I guess they don't call it that anymore. Anywhere. Pat/Etsy FS tab. This file is an important piece of information that if you trash, your machine will not boot. It's kind of an important piece of information. FS tab stands for file system mount points. Okay. So what we have is the name of the device and its mount point and the type of file system it is. And then defaults and all these different things mean different things. And generally speaking, I go in there and clean up FS tab. Change directory /Etsy by SF tab. And I'll go in here and clean it up a little bit so it makes a little more sense. Okay. So go here. Now you don't have to do this. I'm going to do this to make the next few steps a little easier. This is one of those files. It doesn't matter if it's tabs or spaces. Some files are very picky about spaces and tabs. And let me explain briefly. Have they covered FS tab in the test out yet? Well, now we're going to get to play with it so you can actually remember it. All right. So what we have here we have a dump and a pass. what this means is when the machine boots and there's a bad spot on the disk and it won't mount, it'll try again. It'll try to do what they call FSCK, and clean out the file system, and then try to mount it again. 2 passes. Defaults is the most common thing. You can mount a drive, a logical volume, from another machine. That can be Samba shares or CIFS, or it can be NFS, or it can be some other sort of network share. So when your machine boots, that share is there. That can get tricky. If that machine's down, your machine won't boot because it can't mount the drive that's in here. There are defaults to set up for NFS that says on 5 retries or whatever, give up and boot the machine anyway. Okay. Roving profiles. How many have heard that? Windows roving profiles. No? In an Active Directory, you can log in and have all your stuff with you, no matter what machine you log in on. That's not a new idea. It's been around since the days of NFS and early Sun workstations in the day of MS-DOS 5, maybe even 3. That when you would log in, you'd get a mount point. It was actually an NFS share that was your home directory. So no matter where you logged in the enterprise, you had the same stuff. Okay. It's coming back to that. You can see it with G Drive. You can see it with OneDrive. You can see it with Dropbox. Same concepts, different implementation. Okay. All right. And now we have our swap, our home, but we don't have the ones we created in here, do we? So let's go through that process of seeing what we can do to mount something. Okay. All right. So I've got my LVs and I have these. Okay. So if I was to look at my current mount points, okay, there's home, root VG. Remember when we installed our LVM and it did magic all by itself, right? And it said install and use our LVM and set up to direct. It was all magic when we did the install, didn't we? Now we saved some time by doing that when we created the VM to be able to not have to reinstall software. How do you mount something? Mount command. Mount what to what? How do we do that? Okay, mount command. Great. How? Well, let's do some. Let's see. How do I want to do this? Maybe I'll do it with swap. Let me go over here. Try this. Over here. Bring up my notes. And we'll do that. Okay. This is a process that I used to have to do on a quarterly basis on the AIX boxes. When we had to run the financials, because it took a whole mess of memory. And there wasn't enough memory on the box to support it all. So we had to add extra swap space so it could do its thing. And what is swap space? What's this stuff right here? What have you learned so far about swap? What is it?
Stored on your hard disk. It's like RAM.
Exactly. When things get full, it kind of rolls it to disk. Keeps rolling it to disk. So if you're loading a 400-page document and there's not enough RAM, it gets swapped. It can make things slow, but when you run out of swap space, man, things can get really slow. Because then you get this, it's trying to, what we call a deadly embrace, it kind of gets stuck. Okay. So I am going to show you a trick that I've used for years to create some swap space. Now notice, who am I? Am I Tux or ID? Or what am I? Root? Pardon?
I'm not sure for that. I have a question.
Oh, okay, sure. Fire away.
So for your server that has like 4 terabytes of RAM, does that have a swap file?
There's a raging debate right now about swap and how much do you need when everything's in RAM disk. The argument in the early days of MV2 drives was don't do swap because it increases the read write and shortens the lifespan. That's kind of a moot point anymore. The swap space, what I've noticed on machines of even reasonable caliber, hardly gets touched unless you're on a multi-user box. Then you start seeing swap space being used. But in a single station with all the power that you can get on a single box, it's very rare to see. And I'll show you one of the tricks. So I'm going to show you how to create a 1 gigabyte swap file. Okay. I'm logged in as root. This all needs to be done as root. Okay. CD, and I'm going to just put it in the root directory here. Clear print working directory / I'm putting in the very basic system directory here so we can keep an eye on it. And then I run this command. Now, what does that do? DD is the device dump. This was one of the earliest. Yeah. Bummer. I guess we need to make it smaller. So let's reduce it to 512. Now let's keep the block size the same and just go to the. Let's just go to 1024. Make it small. And we're just walking through it anyway. Okay. Well, block size 1024. Now, block sizes will change based on what you're doing. Okay. So what is this doing? Well, it is taking a device dump and it's taking this device called 0 and filling a block name called /swap file. Well, nothing but 0. So it's a chunk of disk with 0 for the block size of 1024 and a count of 1024. Let's see if I have enough room for that. Should be pretty small. Yeah. Okay, it worked. Now, if I do an LS, there it is. It's called swap file.
What does block size mean?
Block size tells you when you write it out to disk, what size of block you want to write. There's different sizes of blocks based on different criteria, like your boot drive, the /boot. has 512K. Usually your data drives are maybe 4096 because they're holding more stuff. Swap 1024 is usually what the size is for swap because it lines up nicely with memory. So
Not
when you
like-
dump memory out, it knows
Is
it's
that like bytes or something?
like what?
Is that like bytes or something?
Sort of. But what swap does is basically when your machine gets really full, it uses swap space. Okay. So we're creating some extra swap space. And then what we do here is I need to tell the system I want to turn that into legitimate swap. There it says, okay, look at that. It gave it a UUID, the whole 9 yards. Now, did you know that if you mount insecure swap, people who have normal login can decode what was in that swap? So you can actually use forensics on swap files. Windows is notorious for this. This is one of the, page file.sys. Boy, you can get that thing. You can roll back all kinds of history. Okay. So what we want to do is change this permissions to 600. And what's that do? That means only root. And look at it. Okay. There we go. Now, before I do this, if I type in free, that tells me how much memory is here. Free minus H puts it in a human readable format. Notice how much swap I have right now. About 975 MID. There is a difference between MIB and NB. I'm going to let you go look that up because that's a test question.
Isn't it like
Test question.
1024?
Yeah, there's a difference on it. It's just basically where they put the ends of it. Yeah, it's pretty. Once you know the definition, you don't forget it. Usually. But that's why it says it's MID, basically. All right. So that's what's free. Now I've done that. Now I want to turn the swap on by simply saying swap on swap file. Poof. Go back to free.h. I've just basically doubled my swap file. See how much bigger that is.
Oh, I see.
See how easy that is? Now, if I do swap on minus S, it shows me all the swap space. There's my swap space. And it tells you, is it a partition or a file? There is some performance hit here. But the nice thing about it is you can take it back out and delete it and put that disk back into the pool. So it doesn't have to be permanent. But what if I wanted to make it permanent? Well, I've got my DF here. Do DF minus A. Shows it to me. No. It doesn't do that. All right, let's do this. Yeah, there's a bunch of things in there. You can change a system control called swappiness, and you can change it to make it where it doesn't use it at all, except when it needs it. Okay. that really depends on the type of device you're using or type of system. Okay. So let's look at our Etsy FS tab here. So notice we have this right here. Swap file. And remember up here, we have this thing. Remember that? That's the universal ID for that disk. Okay. There's no label on it at the moment, which is fine. So if I do VI Etsy FS tab, what did I just do? This is Etsy FS tab. I took that goofy looking number when we did the make swap command. I copied it. And then I said, okay, let's mount it. So if I reboot, I'm going to have both swap spaces available. Shall we try it and see if it blows up? Because this is step one in learning how mount points work. Okay. Go, reboot. I'm going to lose my connection. Boom. And then I'll go over to my VM here and watch it do its thing. Hopefully it doesn't die on me. If it does, oh no, restore from your previous backup. Have we backed up yet? No. So in our case, what would we do? We would just reinstall. Yeah. So let's see here, view. I'll show you how to start that one too. Let it sit for a minute. Yeah.
What's the command to display the universal ID for a swap that I already created?
There's several. One is ls block. It's LSBLK BLKID. And then you can install a UUID package. There's a bunch of different ways to access it. This is one of those uniquenesses that are unique by distro. The way Red Hat does it is different than the way Debian does it, which is different than somebody else and somebody else. Okay. So it's not working. Oh, look, it finally worked. Yay. Now, but that took a long time to boot. I'm a little concerned. So let me log back in again. If I hit the right password. Oh, come on. Do I have caps locked on? Oh, wait. Would help if I use the right password. D-message. D-message is a monster. It has all kinds of good stuff in here. D-message is showing you what happened as your machine is loading. When in doubt, look at dmessage if you got something quirky. Okay. Look at all this fun stuff that you can go figure out. Okay. I don't see any major errors. And if I do DF, okay. How do I look at swap? How do I look at swap? Swap on F. Okay. As in show. What happened? It's not there. I put it in FS tab. It didn't mount it. Oh no. So let's go back and look at our history here. First of all, I want to fix this and do that. Take it out. That's why it took so long to load, because the swap didn't load. It didn't mount it. Okay, so let's try it a different way. Let's see here. Now, if I do swap on S, there it is. I want that to be available when I boot. But that UUID thing didn't work. What's my next plan of action? Give it its actual name. You can mount things either by device or UUID. Okay. Now, why do you care? Okay. I'm going to reboot and see if this works better. See if it boots faster. Or if it gets stuck loading swap. Wow, so much faster. So it didn't have trouble loading the actual name. Now, what's the deal here? We are getting to the point where I can choose to mount something. Let's say I have a disk drive. It's dev HD. Let's go with HD A1 and dev HD B1. I have two drives and they're both Linux. This one is running Debian 12 and this one's running OpenSUSE 14.5. When I put the physical drive here, that means it will always boot from A and it will never boot from B. To make that change, I would have to go into BIOS and say boot from B instead of A. But if I use UUID, it doesn't matter what BIOS says. I can boot from the drive I want. Because the UUID, you can put it in the order that you want. You can have 30 different boot disks and pick the one you want to boot just by having the right UUID on boot. And you can also add it to Grub and do all that. That's later on down the road. But this works fine as long as you don't want to boot off the other drive. Generally, the convention is to use UUID because then you always know where it's going, especially in production boxes. You know, home machines, who cares? You can do whatever you want. Okay. All right. So there it is. And did it work? Yes, it worked this time. So there it is. Now we want to create some mount points for the LVs that we created. LVS. Here's what they're called. And this is the volume group we created. Okay. So first of all, we have to create a mount point. And there's conventions all over the map. But I usually use /MNT, which is right off the root directory. And you have generally you have to change permissions on this to make it available for the users. But for the most part, MNT is a good standard. And it depends on what you want to do, if you want to open up the permissions or not. Okay. But I have two LVs, right? And they're add 1, add 5. So I'm going to create 2 mount points in here. Add 1 and add 5. Yeah. So there it is. So now I'm ready to do the fun thing. How do we mount with LVM? Let's see if I can remember. My brain is pretty tired right now. After I want 12 UHG add 1 LV / MNT add 1. Yeah. Okay. So that means let's take a look at dmessage. Oh, yeah. I have to tell it what kind of file system it is. Okay. So when you read a man page, usually you skim down to the bottom and look at the examples. Okay. So let's see what their T is. Auto. Did we finish making the file systems? Did we run MKFS on these logical volumes? We created the volume group. LV create. So we did create them. I'm wondering if we put I think we forgot that stuff. Let's see here. Missing code page or helper program. Oops. All right, that's what I needed. Okay. We created the logical volume, but we didn't format it. It's like we got a brand new pen drive, but we didn't format it yet. Okay. So what we just did is we ran MKFF. So that's the last step in this. I think that's right. Yeah, I think that's what I need. Yeah. Yep, that's what we needed. Okay. And you can use that dev mapper, or there's other ways to look at it. Okay. But this basically formats it. So now, once it's formatted, now if I put stuff on the drive, let's say I put stuff in add one, and I run this command again, what happens to my stuff in add one? Because it reformats. This is like doing a format on a USB drive. Okay, it's just reformatting everything. Okay, so now let's go back to our mount. Yeah, there it is. Any guesses on how to mount add 5? Yep, just change the number. Ta-da! There they are. Now, we want to make these available when they boot. There it is. Use the mount command. This used to be, just type it in all by itself, M-O-U-N-T, enter. And look at all this fun stuff. Isn't that really spiffy? We're going, oh my goodness, what am I looking at? Line noise at 600 baud. They all mean something, and they all do something slightly different. Okay. You'll get more into this. I will bring more of this out as we move forward. Okay. So this is what we got. We want those guys to be available when we boot. So what file do I need to edit to make the entries? FS tab. Where's my candy?
Right here.
I need to start throwing candy. Here we go. Great. This is available, folks. Happy Halloween. Right? Okay. Change directory Etsy via FS tab. And if you're sleepy, who's sleepy? Who needs some caffeine for?
I'm so
Yeah.
sleepy. Oh my God, I'm so sleepy.
There you go. Now don't report me for being evil. Pass them around. I stole them from our trick or treat bag that we get about 5 to 10 trick or treaters in our neighborhood. All the kids have grown up and gone away. So it's when our kids were little, it was a zoo. There we go. All right. You want any more? Who wants any more? Anyone more? Yes, no?
Or lean back here.
You want one?
Yeah, throw it at him.
Okay. So it looks to me like I can kind of cheat here. Notice this one. Looks really similar to what we have done so far. We have an ext4. We'll just take the defaults. This is where I would use my good friend VI. I would say : read in, bang, mount. And it brings in all the mount. And I don't need hardly any of them. Those are the only ones I need. So now I don't have to remember it, but I need to put it in the right place. So I'll go here. All right. The word on is a bad thing, so we want to get rid of that. And we don't need the word type. And I can still use defaults here. And I will still use 0 and 2. Oops. Oh. I need to mention that. So what do we have here now, folks? Well, we created a swap file. Can a swap file be part of an LVG? Yeah. Sure, why not? So I now have my new mount points ready to rock and roll. And shall we reboot and see? Now, what happens when it dies? You end up, your machine won't boot, and you have to go into maintenance mode, which is single user mode. And then you have to mount root to temp, and then edit Csci FS tab to fix your goof. It will happen to all of you once. Okay. And you can't always say, oh, I'll just reinstall. It might be the production server, and you can't do that on a production box.
Which file are you editing right now?
Csci FS tab. That file. On the virtual machine. Not on the host. Okay. All right. And it says, please run syscontrol daemon reload after making changes here. It used to be you had to do a init 1 or an init 2. This works too. So I'm just going to remember this. All right. And let's take a look at DF. Well, guess what? There they be. So I created a swap file, I added a swap file. I finished off the formatting our logical volumes from last week, so they would take a file system. And we now mounted them via Etsy FS tab, and if I reboot and watch it go, it should reboot and it should work. And if it dies, well, you'll get to see me fix it. Yay. Mission accomplished. Now, when you install Debian or Ubuntu or Red Hat or SUSE or Mint or TinyCore or Puppy Linux or any other distribution I have ever touched, the very first thing you're going to have to do let's see here. User bin. This is what's going to happen. And you're going to try to move your mouse keys around, your arrow keys, and it's not going to work. You'll get a D and an up arrow, and it messes everything up. So the very first thing, one of the very first things I do anyway, is you say sudo apt install vim. There's a couple of them. There's GTK, that's fine. Or NOx, that's the one I like to use. That one has all the built-ins for scripting enabled. It makes a bigger install of Vim. Okay. So I don't want to do that there. Well, yeah, I do. sudo apt install vim.nox. Whoops, minus nox. Notice what it installs. When you install something, it's always smart to say, what is it really installing? And do I know that this stuff is really legit? Have you heard of supply chain poisoning? This is what Russia and China is doing with Ubuntu and Red Hat, is that they get in and they make a legitimate commit with a back door. And it gets rolled in, and you say update, and you now get the back door. So, caveat door. And I think the Raspberry Pi is notorious for this. So be aware when you use a Raspberry Pi. Nothing personal on it. Don't use it for banking. Just kind of keep it off and play with it, but don't do anything serious with it. Okay. And then I'll say yes. And off it goes. And for those of you that really want to learn old school VI, there is a bug for bug compatible package available for every distribution I've looked at. It's called NVI. Watch what happens when I install this. What? It created a new service? NVI is VI from the late 70s, early 80s. It got nothing. I mean, nothing. Okay. So when you do NVI, that's it. This is old school VI, and it still works the same. Hit escape, YY, paste. But if something happens, both Vim and VI will do this, or old school VI. My file is open, right? Now it's not. My file is open. What happened? It's gone. Well, let's log in again. Whatever I see what I do. I went here. There we go. And there. This is Jeremy. And then I log into the VM. See why you can get lost? And I don't even know what I called it. NVI.
You didn't name it.
I think it's just -R. You say -R for recover? This is the temp file that it saved it in. So my file is there. And I can recover where it picks up. Vim also does it, but it's much more elegant with Vim. It's got a naming convention that actually makes sense. So here, I'll just type in TMP, VI. Let's see if it makes a liar out of me. Oh, wow, look at that. There's the file with all the stuff in it. So now I can go in and save it. That says, okay, what did I just save my file to? It's not in here.
You save it to the temp.
More candy for you. Yes, I just saved it to this file here. That's where my file is. Now that's real intuitive. So let's fix that. So I can just edit it. I don't need to recover it. I want to write it to a new file. :w /junk.txt. Tells you it wrote it. When do you want to have old school NVI laying around? When you're working on computers that are 500 million miles away and you got spotty connections, you're going to be using something called MOSH. This is not in test out. This is from people who work in industry who do that. I had no need for MOSH because of the type of systems I worked on, because I didn't have to deal with extreme latency on machines that were on the other side of the planet. MOSH will deal with that. So I'll leave that to you to go look it up and figure out how to use it. But it will work very nicely in low bandwidth. Like if you're trying to use your phone and you're trying to use, because I actually have it's called ConnectBot. And it's actually a terminal that does SSH from my Android. So I can talk to these boxes by way of VPN. So you too can do that. It's called ConnectBot. There's other ones out there, but this guy's been around a while. And as far as I know, it's not Trojan. You don't really know unless you put the stuff in a box and you watch it come and go. Okay. All right. Isn't that fun? Now that we've done logical volumes and we've created them and we've mounted them and we've done all that, how are you going to remember? Should I be kind or evil? And say, you need to write out the notes, turn it in for an assignment, knowing full well that this is something that you will see again in industry. Or should I put it up on the webpage and forget about it? And let you make the decision whether or not you want to keep it. My approach is the latter. If you're serious about this, you're going to keep this. If you're not, Okay. So the way I'm going to do this is I've got some notes already written out, and I'm going to walk through them with you. This is not perfect by any means. This is very sloppy. Okay, it's notes for me. Some editing required if you want to make it intelligible. Okay, so obviously, I didn't say add drives to machine. Right? That's missing. That's just kind of the assumption when you see F disk, new drive. 80 for LVM, PV create, PV's PV display, PV create, PV scan, or create display, and so on and so forth. And the parts I did not show you is the beauty of the logical volume. You can make it bigger or smaller. So if you have a database, we used to do this at Foster's all the time. We need more disk. Did you shrink the LVs? Yeah. So we could show they were 90% full. When in fact, we had a buffer. But we knew if we waited till we got a real 90%, they would still drag their feet and we'd have downtime. So we would wait until we were like 75%, shrink the LVs, show them we were at 90%. We got the money in months to put in new drives, and then we extend everything back out. So sometimes you have to play that game with management because IT in a lot of companies, especially around here, is a necessary evil, not a strategic advantage. IT can truly be a differentiating factor if it's done right. Data science, so on and so forth. Okay. And then it shows you how to extend it, resize it. And then this is the step we didn't get to. Whoops, right here. That's a swap. Oh dear. What a mess. All right. And there's actually two different phases on this one. And go down. This is the part we did tonight. And then we make a directory and then we mounted it. And then I showed you how to put it into Etsy FS tab. And then it shows it to you, LS block and block ID. Add it. And then you can, this is one way to do it too. You can say no A time. That has a special meaning. That means access time. On Linux, you can see when somebody looked at a file by username. And you can turn that on or off. Okay. I doubt that's in test out. Okay. And then here's the Debian 10. This is another way we did it later on. There we go. So like that. Should I make it available for you? Let me show you how I do this. I'm going to be lazy and send this to my Philips D site. Now I've got a bunch of shortcuts in here, so it won't work for you because I'm also have SSH keys put in here. There is, if you look through .ssh, there's a file called config, and you can set up the config file to do a ton of shortcuts for you. Okay. So there it is. And let's see, I want to go to 210L. And let's put it right here. LVM notes. Your mileage may vary, very much so. And where is it? It is in oops, I'm gonna have to move it there. LVM underscore steps dot txt. You too can be a web administrator. This is all it takes. And go here, and here. There you go. Almost ready to script. You could almost put this in a script and run it. Not quite. You'd have to do a few things, but that's it. So LVM notes, your mileage may vary. Okay. And then this is what we started last week and kind of how we finished it. So there's actually 2 copies of this. Okay. All right. What else you want to talk about? How about zombies and children killing their parents and parents killing their children? Processes, process IDs. Log into your VM and I'll show you what I'm talking about here. So I'm in the VM, and if I do process minus EF, this shows me everything. We have a parent process, and then we have a child process. And occasionally you'll end up with a zombie process, which is a process that somehow got disconnected from its parent, and it's kind of running around the system, not doing anything. Okay. And there's a couple commands we can use in here. HTOP, mtop. It's not installed. Okay, that's fine. Let's do. I think it's HTOP. Yeah, HTOP has a bunch of fun things in it. Okay. HTOP will show you the number of CPUs, and you have to install it, sudo apt install HTOP. And when you type in HTOP, this is what you get. And even though it's mouse driven, you can actually see, you can click on it. You can actually do its thing. You can say increasing by decreasing, which one has been running the longest, what the command is, sorted, process ID, who owns what process ID. Priority and the nice value. Have they talked about priority and nice? No? Okay. Remind me, I'll talk about that. The virtual reserve. So this is showing you all the cool stuff of what you can do with HTOP. Okay. Kind of gives you some interesting, it's a nice clean way to look at something. It's one of those things that you can turn it on and leave it on, and you can kind of get an idea of how your machine is behaving. Okay. There's other things like this that are prettier. There's also the top command that simply runs once. And if you want it to update, you hit the space bar. It gives you a lot of the same information, but it's not quite as pretty. And Q to get out. Top, I believe, is part of the system. So I am going to create a process, a really simple one, that just simply displays text. Okay. While true. The snake eye, the colon means true. Enter. Echo. Boo. Sleep. 5 seconds. Which did I forget? I forgot. So every 5 seconds, it should display boo. That's not a big deal, is it? How do I kill it? What process is that?
Proceed.
How do I know? Well, let's open another terminal. And terminal. And log in. And log in. Okay, which one? Oh, there it is. Sleep. Kind of, maybe. Is that really it? Is it just the sleep command I want to kill?
No.
I want to kill what called it. How do I find it? There we go. Right up here at the top. Process ID and parent process ID. So if I scroll down, what's the parent process ID? 1164. Here's 1164. What's the parent ID of that? 63. What's that one? 63. What's the process parent of this? SSHD tux. Well, if I kill that one, the user's going to get logged off. That's fine if I want to do that, but I just want to stop the bash process, which would be that one. So I am on another system here, and there's multiple kills. You have the ruthless kill, which leaves no prisoners. And it used to be in the days of databases, if you did this, you could corrupt your database. It's called the kill 9, kill -9. If you type in kill, hit space, and say 1284, it's going to use a reasonably nice kill. Okay. So it stopped, or did it?
Did that wrong.
I did that wrong? Yeah, I
You
did.
built the wrong process.
Oh, I did. Guess what I did? I killed me. I wasn't looking very well, was I? That's the problem when everybody's named Tux, huh? Good catch. All right, let's try it again. Sleep. 1164. And let's see. Oh, let me show you this. Think that might. Let me double check here. Uh, That, okay. And if I do echo dollar bang. Now, this is one you'll need to write down because it doesn't show up in documentation very often. But the echo dollar bang says, I'm running a process and it's going to display the current process ID. So let's set this up so where it's a real script and it'll be something that is more practical in a real benefit here, okay? Do I have, there is no bin directory here, okay, okay. I'm just gonna call it boo hi. And I'll call it bin bash here. Give it the name. And wherever there's a semicolon, I can delete it and put enter. Now, this is what is more typical is let's just not make it run forever. Let's just say and then here, if I type in this, you will see. It's called PID, as in process ID. What this will do is once this runs, as it fires off, it writes the process ID to which it's tied to this disk file. So you can go back and say cat boo.pid and kill it. This is how they run the databases. This is the Apache web server. There's a lot of the bigger servers do this to say, hey, what process ID is this running? And there's usually a bunch of them. And I put it in a script on my machine over here is I'm running to get this to work. To get this Spice client to work off the virtual machine off my desktop, I'm running a web proxy that is mapping the Spice port to the web proxy port that I connect to localhost right here, 9090. That's a web proxy. So when I fire up start Spice, I get these log files that tell me the name of the process ID for that WebSockify program. So if I need to go kill this, I just delete that process ID. Takes care of it, okay? That's real world practical production stuff, okay? This might be in, and where you put this is up to you. I'm going to, just for fun, put it up here. Since it's going to run 4 times, maybe. Because this 4x in ABC is simply the first X is A, the next X is B. I'm not doing anything with it. I'm just using it as a counter. I could make it more elegant, but I'm lazy. Let's see if it works. Bash, boo hi. And wait 5 seconds, and wait 5 seconds, and wait 5 seconds. And then when it's done, there should be a file out there with the process ID in it when it was running. Now, after 4 times and it stopped, I guess I didn't do that right. I wrote an endless loop. Nuts. Oh, it counted 1, 2, 3. Oh, because it counted the brackets. I forgot about that. Okay. Yeah. Oh. What'd I do wrong? I don't know. Let's take a look. I know this works because I use it all the time. Oh, let's just do that. Now, while that's running, all right, we'll do it another way. Once it runs, we'll see what happens. Yeah, okay. Nope, they should display it. I'll have to look that up. Because I use this and I got my log files. All right. Fun times. I'll have to remember how to do that. Because I've been using it. Something about the loop comes to mind. One last command, and I'll let you go. L ports. Oh darn, that didn't work either. SSH. TAUP. AUL. Like that. You can do it a couple different ways. How about not tall? It shows you open ports. And if you add an E, it shows you what processes are tied to what ports. This is really important when you're doing forensics. Who's connected to my box? And what process ID are they using? You use the SS command, which is the sockets that gives you way more information you ever know what to do with. It shows you what port is connected and the address it's going to. Is it UDP or TCP? And it shows you, okay, I have SSH. SSH goes out on 22. Once you connect, it comes back on high order random ports. So 54, 144 is one of my SSH sessions. And the other session is this one. This is also handy to tell if you've got something stuck open that shouldn't be. Okay. And so I create an alias called L ports. That is, make sure I get the same one. This is just me. You can do it any way you want. List ports. Whoops. Yeah. Not Paul found. Well, duh. SS. There. That comes in handy. And adding the E to it. Top one. Gives you exactly what is running. Okay. So if I fire up my loop again, I run this again. And go over here and do L ports. Maybe not. There it is. So which one do I want to delete? This one or that one? Which one is parent process ID? So I want this one. I want the one to the left. Okay. That would be this one. So I can say, now if I want to kill it for good, I can do that. Well, it probably finished running before I got to it. Okay. The kill 9 is rather ruthless. It will knock off a process at its knees. And this is sometimes I can get zombies. And there's also kill. I think it's kill all. This is a command that keeps changing over time. Yeah, here you go. You can kill a user and everything underneath them by using pkill. So you say pkill minus u, and you would give it the UUID of that user or the ID. Where you type in ID, it gives you the username. So you can also see the user ID when you do process. You'll see AUX. This is the old BSD way to do it, where there's no minus signs. This tells you everything. And then the system 5 was EF dash EF. Gives you the same information in a slightly different format. Okay. On that note, I think I better stop because everybody looks pretty tired. All right, folks. So much for zombies, parents killing their children, and so on and so forth. All right, so you have the LVM stuff. You might want to make record of that somewhere. I was showing students in the previous class how a student took this book, Programming from the Ground Up, answered all the questions, and put it up on GitHub. Makes a great portfolio piece because an employer will look at your GitHub and say, what have you been doing? Well, this is my Debian virtual machine, and these are all the steps that I took to create virtual machines and logical volumes and everything else. And you're explaining what you know in English so they know you know how to write. which works very long-term benefits. So on that note, you want to try the unicycle again? You bet. All right, everybody, that's it. I'll hit stop. And you at home, you missed a unicycle.
Now I gotta try to get somewhere on it.
Don't rush that. It actually works much better if you take your time and get
Just sit on it. bro?
the balance to where it feels really comfortable.
When did you say you learned how to motorcycle? I mean, unicycle.
Pardon?
When did you say you learned how to unicycle?
Yeah, I learned it long